Okay, so we're going to do a run through of some of the new effects that came with the CorOS 3.0 release that just came out. And the preset I have here is one that I created from the Plini plugin. It's got some different tones in it, from kind of a nice real clean through some lead tones. And we'll use this kind of as our base preset to play around with. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through all of the new additions to 3.0 and kind of talk about where they fit in and how they compare to what's already on the device. So let's start with the new delay. So the new delay is the circular delay. So we're going to add that in here. We click on that here. Just out of the gate, this is what it sounds like. Let's pump up the mix a little bit just so we can hear it just a little bit better. So a really beautiful delay with, the feedback kind of interacting with each other. It's very cool. So let's talk about some of the controls. So some of them are pretty straightforward to any other delay. Obviously, you've got a mix. We've got our sync along with the delay time if we turn the sync off. We've got feedback. We've got our high pass and low pass filters. We've got a mod rate. We've got a mod depth. We have a vintage mode, which is new. We'll get to that. And then we have trails. On the front, the two new things on the front are the tap preset and the diffusion. So let's start with the diffusion. So I'm going to go ahead and put the tap preset on 1. And this just gives us a single delay. And the diffusion is just kind of how the delays kind of degrade as they go along. So if it's on 0, you get a very pure reproduction. If you pump it up to 100%, you'll hear it start to degrade. So we'll leave it on the 42%, which is the standard. Let's talk about the tap preset. So this is basically how many repeats are getting bundled together. So 1 is just the 1. Kind of sounds like any other delay. If you do 2, so that's pretty cool. But to me, the real power of this one comes once you get to the 3, and you get some really interesting things. And 4. There's an alternate version of 4. I like the kind of original one, the alt one, not as much. And then we go to 5. And to hear this, I find putting the sync note up a little higher, you can kind of hear a little more like what's going on. There's an alternate 5. And we go to 6. And then there's an alternate 6. So personally, in kind of using this, I like 3 through 4. Honestly, these two, 3 and 4, are my favorites. To me, If you're less than 3, you're not getting the full effect of the circular delay. And when you get above 4, it starts to just all mesh together and you can't really hear it. But kind of 3 and 4 are, to me, are very interesting and very musical. So let's go ahead and check out the difference in vintage mode. So if I'm doing this, so you can hear the difference is pretty subtle between the two. You're just getting maybe a little more kind of softness to the delays when you're in vintage mode. And I actually like it quite a bit. So the circular delay, I think, is a really good add, and it's really kind of powerful. So let's go ahead and move on though. So in the compressors, there are new compressors for this release, but they're just the same compressors with the sidechain capability. So we're going to talk about sidechaining in a different video. It's a whole different topic in my mind. So we're going to move on beyond that. On the pitch side, there's 2 new pieces here. One is the pitch correction. So this is something that I don't know I would necessarily use a lot for a regular guitar. I think it could work for if you're playing a fretless instrument. It could definitely work if you're running vocals through the Quad Cortex, or maybe if you're using maybe a slide guitar. I know I saw some demos from early Speed where they're doing a slide guitar. There's 3 different modes really you can run here. You can run it chromatic, which basically means it just keeps you in some half pitch, or you can do it in a minor and what key you want, or major and what key you want. You can adjust the tuning. You can adjust the glissando, which is kind of how it moves you from note to note. And then you have some EQ settings for high pass and low pass and things like that. So again, not something I think I would use a lot with kind of a regular electric guitar, but it's cool that they added it. The other is the transpose. And so this is a pretty simple control here that allows you to shift the sound of your guitar a certain number of semitones. So if I play a minor chord, and then I just drop it a few semitones, let's do 5, and I play the same chord on the guitar, you can hear it shifting the pitch. I can go all the way down 1 octave, but you can hear the further you get from kind of root, the more synthesizer-ish sounding it gets. If I go a full octave up, you know, it sounds okay, but I don't know that it's that much better than a pitch shifter. In fact, let's go ahead and compare it. So let's go ahead and set this. We're going to pitch it up a 5 semitones. And then we'll bring the pitch shifter in. And we're going to go 5 semitones. So here's what the pitch shifter sounds like. And here's what the transposer sounds like. And that's some interesting artifacts there. But the pitch shifter, I think, will do the same thing. So to me, the transpose sounds like it's basically the pitch shifter with less controls. Like it doesn't have the fine or the mix. It just has the coarse. So if we look at the CPU usage, they look about the same. So I'm not actually sure that the transposer is adding anything. I don't know, maybe it tracks better when you're just shifting one or two semitones. I don't know, but I don't feel like it's really adding all that much. So let's go ahead and keep going. There's no modulations or morph changes. On the filter, they added a side chain capability for the envelope filter. On the EQs, they added the plugin graphic 9 to go with the regular graphic 9. I've been looking at these. They're exactly the same. I'm not exactly sure what the difference is and why there's two of them. So, and then there's quite a bit added in the utility. So let's start with the one I'm most excited about, the doubler. So we'll go ahead and add in this doubler. I'm going to shift us to a more of a crunchy tone. So let's go ahead and turn the doubler off. So it sounds like this. We turn on the doubler. So that's pretty cool. Always before, when I wanted to do this, for example, in the Guthrie Govan preset, I think I used the same thing in the kind of Boston Tom Schultz preset. What I did is I would bring in a dual delay, and I would turn off the sync, crank the levels down low, put the feedbacks on 0, and then you can also control the modulation. So the mod's pretty basic, but that modulation also adds a little bit of chorusing effect. And so I would use this. But you can see I can get a very similar capability from the doubler. So a pretty similar effect. I don't know that it's adding anything new, but the nice thing is it's giving me the same kind of effect for way less CPU. You can see that here. I found that for the delay, I needed to use the dual delay and use different delay times to try to get a fuller sound. The doubler seems to do that better on its own. So very cool. So I think the doubler is a good addition. If we go here, we can see there's also a plugin doubler. They're very similar. It's just the utility doubler gives you a little more level of the dry and effects, where the plugin doubler is just more straight ahead. They seem to be using the same amount of CPU, so I would always just use the utility doubler, frankly, to have more control. So the other pieces we have in the utility is there is a new gate with the plugin. It's basically just a simple gate with a threshold. So again, I don't think it's really adding anything. And the adaptive gate does have side chaining, and we'll get to that, like I said, in a different video. But the last thing I want to talk about is the blend. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the transparent blend. So what this allows you to do is it's related to side chaining, but you can side chain from a certain point in the preset and mix it with a signal. So I'll give an example. So let's say I'm on my clean tone here, and I want to mix it with a direct signal, just let's say from the compressor. So let's go ahead and we're going to set the source of this as the compressor. So now what's happening is the guitar comes in, goes into the compressor. It still moves on through the rest of the preset, but it's also sending a signal down direct from this compressor to this blend block right here. And I can control the percentage mix of the two. So 0 means I'm getting just the regular preset flow. If I go to 100%, I'm just getting the signal from the compressor. So one thing we're going to notice here is, especially in this case where we're trying to blend in a more direct signal. So here's the regular preset. If I push the blend to 100%, it's super quiet because the signal from the compressor hasn't been pushed up in volume. It hasn't been amplified through the amplifiers. So if you want to do this, you still need to kind of push up the volume before it gets to the transparent blend. So one way to do that is I'm going to go ahead and put a splitter here. I'm going to do an A-B split and push the level to B. And let's hear what that sounds like. It's still pretty quiet. So what we need to do here is I'm going to add in just a gain block here. And we'll go ahead and push the level up. And then what we're going to need to do is go to our blend and choose the source as that gain block. So there's our direct signal, and now we can mix it in with the amp. So it's one example of how you could use a blend. There's a lot of different ways you could do this, and part of what I'm going to do is to experiment with it and see if I can find some cool ways to use it. But there's a basic way of how it's working. So one thing I do want to talk about with the blend is, let's go ahead and we're going to get rid of this. I'm going to set this to blend after the cab. No. All right, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add in a simple ping pong delay right here. And we're going to go there, and we're going to set the mix. We're going to set it a little high. We're going to push up the delay time a little bit so we can be sure to hear it. We've got the width at 100%. So if I go here, I'm going to choose that delay as kind of the input source. And you can hear it. If the blend's 0%, again, this is just the direct signal. So that's maintaining the stereo coming through. It's keeping it left and right. If I push this to 100%, meaning it's doing like the side chain direct from the delay through the blend, you'll hear the delays are no longer going left and right. So these blends, when you're doing this kind of side chaining to them, are turning stereo signals into mono. And there doesn't seem to be a stereo version of the blend. So it's something to keep in mind. When you're doing these blends, it's going to take away your stereo width. So frankly, I'm a little disappointed that out of the gate, the blend is not a stereo effect. I wish they had done that. It doesn't use very much CPU, and there's a stereo signal coming into it. It seems like right now the side chaining cannot support stereo signals, which is disappointing, frankly. So keep that in mind. So those are the new native Quad Cortex effects in the 3.0 release. Obviously, there's a lot of effects coming in through the plugins. The Plini has its own set of effects. It's got a delay, a pre-delay, a reverb, an octaver, a chorus, a compressor. But what we went through today is what's kind of native to the Quad Cortex. So let me know what you think about the new effects that are native to the Quad Cortex. Is there anything that you're really enjoying? I think the circular delay and the doubler are very good. The blend is also very powerful. It's going to take a while to figure out all the ways to use it. The rest of it, I think, is dependent on really learning how side chaining can improve the presets. And then obviously the other piece is there's a lot of organizational improvements on the Quad Cortex in terms of how you can structure folders and things like that. We'll do another video on that as well to kind of talk about the best way to do that structure, because there's a lot of power in the new folders and the subfolders. And I, for one, am very excited to get some structure around my captures, because there's so many and they're all over the place and it's so hard to find them. I know there's the filter and stuff like that, but every time I add a new capture from the Cortex Cloud, it's so hard to find it when I get to the Quad Cortex. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting in there and structuring that. And I'll do a video on that once I get a hang of it as well. So like I said, let me know in the comments below what you're liking out of these new effects. And I hope you found this helpful. And thanks for watching.